So I'm going to start opening it out to questions from various people which are coming in now. So let's start opening that up. So the first one is great session. What are the 2 to 3 books that you strongly recommend? Manu, it's for you.
Books
Maybe
that
we
I
can go by
recommend.
genre. Maybe we can say 2 or 3 like literary novels and maybe 2 or 3 non-fiction books that you think are must reads.
Ah, I don't know why these recommendations. Why? I mean, how would what I like matter? But still, I still feel that Disgrace by Coetzee remains one of the most interesting books, even though men have gone out of fashion in the literary world now. But it remains one of and one book where one writer whom I really like and not many Indians have read is Ann Tyler. She's an American writer. I like her digging to America. You and about non-fiction, I actually I know it sounds a bit grand and it sounds like a dense book, but enjoying history of philosophy. It's
Will
actually called
Durant.
history of philosophy.
Will Durant.
No, not Will Durant's. History of philosophy is by Grayling. It was
Okay.
just published 2 years ago. It is one of
Okay.
the new books, and it's more like a summary of various philosophers. So basically, it's like reading the history of ideas.
Hmm.
Actually, history of Western ideas. Um, so, but I must tell you that that is not the kind of a. I mean, it's not a cover to cover kind of a book. It's a
Hmm.
kind of book. Either
Jumping
you
in,
have it
jumping.
in the bathroom or someplace where serious reading happens for some time, and then you keep revisiting that book. You know,
Right.
and uh, and actually, but it's again, that's why I'm saying it's like when it comes to history, I don't trust political history anymore, because they're all the same kind of people and I know their worldview. um, I mean, they might be great. I'm not questioning their intellectuality, but I like science history
Hmm.
among history. In fact, um, so Manjit Kapoor's Quantum. To me, these books are very philosophical. And recently, I read Anil Ananthaswamy's. I hope I'm getting his name right. Um, his book on the double split experiment. You know,
Okay.
I can get the exact name.
That's fine. We can Google that.
Yeah.
I'm going to move to the next question. New authors struggling to get published. What do you
Yeah.
want to say to them?
I mean, what do you want to ask me about that? Like, I need a
So
more.
I think that's a fair point. So I want to keep the questions more pointed. If you are asking a question, if you can be specific and narrow, I think that's a good thing because that tells.
But then I can answer your question.
Uh,
Otherwise, I'll be rambling and I'll be telling
yeah.
you.
So I wanted to ask you a question, which is that when you said that the literary novel is in dire circumstances, tell us a little bit about, you still see literary novels being published in India. You still see some stuff like that coming out. The volumes seem to be really small. The publishers really seem to like them, although what is selling is commercial fiction. But the publishers, being who they are, like the literary fiction, they just wish they could publish more, but they don't get the volumes. But what do you when you're saying it's in a crisis, what do you mean?
See, generally, uh, there are very few authors who are read, and very few are discovered. So it is the same authors uh, who are being read, is probably the point, and there is a practical aspect to it. The money is outside India.
Yeah.
If you're going to work very hard for 2 years to create a novel, then it is only fair that you feel money is also tied to the reach. How
Right.
many people are reading you? Okay. So there is that. extra crisis for Indian writers in English.
Hmm.
But all interesting fields are always in crisis. That should not bother you. But I'm just speaking very unemotionally,
Hmm.
about this. And uh, yeah, so I suppose that's all there is to it. I mean, if you want to, there is no, unfortunately, there is no strategy, or people who are highly networked may have some kind of access to the editors, but it still has to be publishable. Yeah, so that's why if there is a specific question, I'll be able to answer. I think
Okay.
women are at a great advantage in new writers, among the debut writers. Women are have a great advantage because there's a great curiosity from the literary establishment to hear what women have to say, because most of the readers of literary fiction are assumed to be women, and I think that is true too. Um, so that is another unemotional, non-literary observation, if you want, from someone from the craft.
All
Um,
right. Makes
yeah.
sense. I have an interesting question here saying, Anchal is saying, thank you for the insightful session. How do we as writers find our narrative voice, a voice that isn't just a culmination of our own opinions and thoughts, such that it seems like we ourselves are talking and not our character?
Which is the most important point and most exciting element and the most unique aspect of the novel, or the short story, which is also this question is in the very heart of writing, and even seasoned writers struggle with it. And my own analysis is that not every good novelist has a distinct voice. So some may have it, but uh, many writers find this voice through the character. And one trick, which at least I use to approximate the various voices of the characters, or a distinct voice of the character, there's always you. Writers should never be part of a process where they're trying to hide themselves. It's a complete waste of time, because writing, hiding and writing is almost an oxymoron. You can't do that. And it is, if you really want to write, you have to accept that a bit of you will be exposed. Anyway, in fiction, you have other characters to blame or lean on. So that's something which you can do. And at the same time, the second important point is that you can't be full of yourself, because you're usually more boring than you think, or one of the most important layers in writing is a sense of judgment, where you know when you're writing badly, and people tend to lose that judgment about their own lives.
Mm.
That is why we have a lot of stories about your grandmom and your marriage and your first crush. Nobody gives a rat's ass, honestly, unless you have something more to say, something new to say. But you don't know it because it is your life. You think it's all cute. You think it's all beautiful because it is for you, because it's your life. You lose your judgment, So that's why, at the same time, though the voice, the power of the soul is coming, and don't be fake. The most Once I was interviewing Shoaib Akhtar, who's one of the fastest bowlers ever. He's one of the muscular men. You don't expect philosophy from him, but there is a kind of North Indian Pakistani men who are kind of philosophical thugs, I call them. So he was saying that people can see through you, like no matter what you are, whatever your sophistication, people can see through you. So, see, it's true even in writing. So don't, because every personality is interesting, and people are very forgiving when they're reading. So you don't have to do so much cover up, fake, trying to be either more trying to sound more intelligent or intellectual or good. We don't have to do any of that. That full force of your soul through now can bring in the other souls. You can steal souls in writing. You know, so why let go of that opportunity? Because most of the time, when we are perceiving other people or a crowd of people, it is a soul, and sometimes try to put a whole crowd, a whole idea in a person, and that becomes a voice. Because for all its length, a novel is no match for one human day, which is much more vast than the novel. So you can just get narrow aspects from people, and still that will be more than enough, because that's all you need to show about people. So that is another way of collecting the voice. And best like trying. Okay, imitation is kind of inevitable as a part of the process, but always just be aware of it. Like, for example, you're reading Kundera, you know after reading Kundera, I think it happens to men especially, they want to write that philosophical paragraph in the middle. But that is Kundera. He's coming from a place and time and a certain, I call it the happy melancholy of a guy who can just, say things. I mean, if you can do it, that's great. But imitation just does not work for those kind of things.
Yeah.
Maybe what you're good at is your observational comedy, which you're underestimated, or maybe what you're good at is to bring in the family dynamics, and how people are, and so I feel that people tend to underestimate their own gifts because of a because they feel that there is another way to write, or writing is something grand. Ultimately, writing is not about excellence. This is something which I wish I knew in my 20s. This is the only bloody profession where smart, when they say smart or clever, it's not a compliment. When you see smart or clever, it means that they are beginning to diss your work. This is the only profession on earth. I don't agree with this aspect of literature, but still, writing is not about excellence at all. It is, unfortunately, a talent for curated humility, in the sense that we are interested in human beings, even if it is through our own lives. I don't think you should feel the humility, when you're writing, because you need a lot of confidence and self-assuredness when you're writing, and that is in a different territory from humility. But humility should be the background hum, and the humility is a particular kind of humility where you're saying that even when your character is a misanthrope, you are saying that collectively you are interested enough in human beings. So, and ultimately it's about people. People are very heavy on ideas. They fall into the trap of too much ideation, while a book, even though people like me like ideas, man, I love ideas, to listen to other people's ideas. But even there, it has to come through human characters, and that is the real challenge, because writing is just one part of literature. It's still literature. Ideas is one part of literature, but how and what it does to human beings is where it becomes a novel, right? And we are trying to attempt a novel.
Right.
And never underestimate story. You don't write for the story. A story is an idea delivery device or an emotion delivery device. But I don't think the literary novel should ever underestimate a plot line, a plot,
Mm, mm,
and that is part of the humility of which a writer needs. I feel that it is always nice to reach out a bit. I was reading a, a profile of Stephen King where his mother told him that you are so eager to please that if you were a girl, you would be always pregnant. And that also actually explains why King is so popular. And so, I mean, there might be some snobbish views against him, but he's very popular because he's reaching out. He wants to please you. He wants you to have a good time. He wants to entertain you, move you, right? That's a good way to be for a writer, and there is no shame in that.
right. Thanks. Yeah, your tea is getting all cold. The next question is Sonia, and she has a interesting question. Lots of questions about illicit happiness, by the way. I enjoyed the illicit happiness immensely, especially the satire. Many of your columns, like the book, are satirical. What is your advice for someone who's trying to write satire? Tips, reading advice, anything?
Satire is one of the strange words. Sometimes in interviews, I just play along and satire, talk about satire. And some interviews like now, it depends on my mood. I don't fully understand the description of me as a satirist or my work is satirical because I try to my area of focus is realism and reality, not only realism. Realism is a parody of reality. I try to be almost journalistic, and I feel that that is what is also funny or interesting. Maybe what you're like what we mean by satire is actually it has become an umbrella word for maybe comedy from society or politics. So I get that. I just feel that again, as I said, a lot of people undermine their own observation. And one comment I always get from my readers is, I was thinking exactly that. I didn't know that I could write it. So maybe that's the only difference between me and them. I'm trained enough, because I've been writing since the age of 20, that I just know that those things can be written, and that it is nothing is too small or insignificant, that everything. So maybe even if you've asked me, like, okay, what can I say to someone who wants to write satire? Like even right this moment when you're watching me speak about whoever asked the question, there might be some funny things come to your mind, the way I look or the way I'm explaining it, and all these things I feel work. Anything which is not fake is worth writing. And of course, there are unremarkable things, ordinary things, and that's where you have to use your judgment on.
Yeah. Great, thanks. We have a lot of questions, and I'm going to sift through the questions and stick to the ones which are more relevant and pertaining to writing. So this is from Java. It's a great question. Again, my favorite book of yours is Illicit Happiness. Other people, what all did you tap into to create the character of 17-year-old Unni Chako?
So, I mean, among the factual elements, I mean, it is from my life, and also all those people existed, and there is Unni is a mix of a friend of mine, and I also made myself look a bit cool, and the coolness. One thing I've never been in my life is cool, right? And I just we all have a romanticized version of ourselves, that's why I try to make people feel good on how everybody feels that they used to look great when they were in the 20s and how they are decaying. I tell them that, no, I know you in your 20s, you never looked great. So it's my way of making people
not the most
feel
popular
good.
guy.
No, it doesn't work. But I thought this is the greatest, because recently, a friend of mine sent my picture when I was 21 or something, which is very rare. Like, never used to take so many photographs then. It was hilarious to see that picture and my mental image of me at 21. They're completely different. So Unni, I consciously, it is still me, part of him, but I was never that. I was never that cool, in some of the aspects of his personality. And of course, there are other aspects to him which I'm not, who's someone else. And he's real, it was, he's real though, I would say that he's real. By that, I mean that he was a person in that time, Sometimes people don't know, can such a person exist in Madras of that time? And they can never figure that out unless you've lived there or, you're from there. And he is.
That I have a question from Anju Narayanan. Anju is actually at the retreat right now as part of a residency that we're running. Her question is, looking forward to your first nonfiction book, Manu, do you feel that writing about inequality from a position of relative privilege, however critically, risks speaking for the poor rather than with them, like we see in Humans of Bombay type of storytelling? When writing nonfiction on such subjects, is it always inherently observational and removed?
Yeah, it is. In fact, I'm commenting, it's actually a book on the middle class and us. That's why the title is Us.
Us, yeah.
It is not why we are not killing the rich guys. So that would be also a very interesting book. Actually, that would be, as a publisher, I was thinking I would get some auto driver, through series of interviews to write the book like why we are not killing you, So that is not my book, that is not. So it is, but at the same time, there are some observations which an auto rickshaw guy can't make for various reasons. Sometimes you need to be in a position of privilege to see things which matter. In fact, one of the arguments I'm making in the book is that the greatest enemy of the poor is not me, but the other poor. When in Nirvana, I've seen the person who harasses the maid the most is the security guard, not me. And when my maid leaves her house till here, all the villains, they're all poor guys, other poor guys, the traffic cop, the guard, her own maybe family, So I never write anything that I don't know, because I have so much to write. I don't even try to write what I don't know or where I'm going to be out of depth, except for science, because I'm an admirer of science, but I'm not qualified to write a scientific book. I'm a great reader of science history, but if at all, I might attempt a science history, but even that I may not. So I feel that I've stayed within the boundaries of what I know. But at the same time, I'm not woke, as some of you who read, I'm not one to make the grand statements. So I'm not staying away from any of that, just because I feel that's what I'm saying. If you want to hide, do us all a favor and don't write. What is the compulsion? Is my point always, to people. If you can pull off something fake, okay, fine, congratulations. But usually it doesn't work. 99% it doesn't work. Some people could be successful, but so even though I've been somewhat luckier than other people, though not as lucky as people presume, I have approached it as unsentimentally as possible. On the ideas for my columns, it is the most difficult part of my job as a columnist, because, as I would like to say, I have no interest in writing a column arguing that you should not eat infants. It's it's obviously you should not eat infants. So I'm not going to write a column about it. And most of the columns, I don't understand columns which make a very obvious moral argument. You know,
Yeah.
yeah, I know you're a good guy. Okay, well done. But why do you need to say that in 1,000 words? So column to me needs to have a either an intellectual ambiguity or a moral ambiguity or something to say. Something to say, even if it is difficult. Some of the ideas I have are so difficult to say that I argue argue with myself, and they don't make it because some of the arguments, especially if they are really morally ambiguous, they should be worth uh, presenting. You should be very sure of yourself. So the ideas, I have a file where I have a whole list of ideas. In fact, I keep writing those. Don't underestimate it. You're going to read it and say, "Oh, it's not that good." I keep talking to myself under the ideas, saying that or this needs work, or this I'm not sure, stuff like that. But the ideas are the most difficult part of my columns because I don't mind repeating some general concepts, but some of the specific arguments you can't repeat. So, so that's yeah,
Mm.
that's a challenge.
Great. Yeah. And I think it's something we all know and we all see around us. So unfortunate, but it's true. All right. Last question. Maybe we can take another one after this. Uma has a question. Your writing carries a tension between irony and empathy. You expose systems, but you mock them, but you still leave space for tenderness. Do you believe that satire can coexist with sincerity, or does one eventually cannibalize the other?
Oh, very interesting question. I feel that this aspect which you've raised might look like a trick or a technique, which as an experienced writer, but actually you're right. See, if uh, if you are morally confident of yourself and you're making fun of an underdog or an idea, I feel that readers come to like what this person has just said about, as a question, right? You're able to see for example, when I'm writing a scene, okay, in a film. There's a film version of Why the Poor Don't Kill Us. I'm putting it in the feature form also. So there is this poor man who helped this guy do something, and he's giving him money, and like then they went, no, sir, no, I won't take money, and then he shoves the money in his pant pocket, and the pocket tears, because he's wearing a rag, okay, and then he tries to put it in the shirt pocket, and the shirt pocket also tears, okay. I want the scene to be funny. There could be this culture page person, who would say, oh, you're making fun of the poor. But most people will understand that it is making fun of the absurdity of life. That so if you're sure about yourself, you will create these moments without worrying about how people might misunderstand it. Writers should not waste time worrying about being misunderstood. They should focus on just being understood. So misunderstand that people try to imagine whatever they can. So I feel that internally we all know if you're an asshole about some aspects of life, like say there are a lot of middle-aged men, they don't like young women, they don't like women, okay, then you trying to portray that bitterness through comedy, technically it can work, but it'll show, and that I like the word tenderness, okay, that if that tenderness is not coming through, that gentle melancholy of life, the melancholy of comedy, is not coming through, it won't come through if you are bitter or if you really coming from a position of hate. I still feel it has a certain comedy, even with gender. Okay, I think women are extremely funny about men because they don't like them at one level. Okay, and some of the funniest women, they are very funny because they don't like them. Thanks. And it can happen with men also, okay, though they're not as funny as women from a position of hatred. I feel it is funny when you hate someone who's an oppressor, like for example, New India. Okay, if you don't like New India, you can be really funny about that country, and we don't have to bullshit that it's coming from position of love and all. Okay? But you can't hate, say, poor people or people who already are oppressed in some way, and then try to make fun of them and say that it is coming from a position of tenderness or I care. It'll just come through. You will expose yourself.
Right. We're almost out of time. But I want to go back to a very, very basic question, because I think that will guide a lot of us. What made you want to become a writer?
I feel initially it was imitation because my father was a journalist and a screenwriter.
Okay.
And then I got a lot of compliments because it's not a first ranker or anything, but all the poems, and then it kind of gave you an exaggerated sense of achievement. Though I feel that so many lives are ruined because they won some essay competition at 15 and they wanted to be a writer forever, and I really feel that it could also be a trap. But I just felt that okay, then I tried to escape. Then when I met real journalists, I thought, oh, I don't want to be this, because I thought they're all James Bond, but they evidently were not. But fortunately, I could not escape also, so I just stayed. But I always wanted to be a writer. I always thought I'll escape, but I will write my stuff. I always thought whatever I do, I'll write. But I didn't want to be a struggler. Because I come from a lower middle class background. I have no romantic notions about poverty at all. So I just wanted to ensure, okay, I'll do this, but I'll always be a writer. It is just as Naipaul makes an observation in one of his, I think, essays, that that he wanted to be a writer, but he didn't know what he wanted to write. And that is actually so true. That's the funniest thing about all writers.
Yeah.
Young writers, you all want to write, but we have not decided what you want to write. It's like, it's almost absurd when you think about it, because you've not decided what you want to write, but you know your whole profession.
Yeah, great. Well, thanks so much, Manu, and thank you from all of us. We're 50 something of us here.
Great.